Hey, welcome back to the Minutemen Initiative. Today we're going to be getting into how to train and maintain a team. So kind of an unofficial follow-up to how to form and cultivate a team, which we did a few episodes ago. We got a lot of feedback from that episode asking specifically on, hey, I've got a team, or hey, I'm building a team, and I'm trying to figure out what are things I should start working on. How do I do these things, and what are ways I can go about creating training events? So we get into that, and we talk a little bit about the ideology behind it and the importance of training, and then specifically, here's some things you can start training on. We don't really get into everything that we think you should train on, because there's just an absolute wide array of things that you should be focused on as a modern Minuteman. But I think we give a good list of ideas and kind of some action steps on how to go about training in those areas. So again, if you haven't listened to how to form and cultivate a team, that might be a good place to start. This isn't necessarily a part 2, but it is a good follow-up to that one. So I would encourage you to start there if you haven't listened to it yet, and then come back to this one. But if you've already listened to that one, then sit back and enjoy the episode. Hunting season up here in Alaska.
It is, yeah. We're hopefully going to be going here in the next week or two.
Yeah, we're going to get out there and dedicate a little bit of time, which is always the hardest part for us because we're just busy. Just running 1,000 miles an hour, it seems like.
Yeah.
But, yeah, dude, we're going to get out there and try to go smack a moose, and then hopefully kill one, too. No, dude. Yeah. The worst. just
a weird dad
joke for no reason. Gather around, children. No, but yeah, it's a busy it's a busy time of year. It's kind of crazy here in Alaska because you go from being in the thralls of fishing season pretty much all summer. Like that kind of kicks off in June, and I mean that's still going in some cases. I mean there's still fish to be had.
Yeah.
So, but it is now hunting season as of the majority. I mean the main hunting season. The fall
for up here. Yep.
Moose season. There's other seasons. You can hunt all year round here. But
yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna try to get out there, and that's always what I hear from people. It's like, you'll have more success if you dedicate more time. And it's just like, oh, man. Because everyone's always like, go get your free moose, And it's like, dude, the more time you take, the less free it is.
Yeah.
We're definitely in a point of life where time is money. But man, it's awesome to be able to go out there and stock the freezer. So
absolutely.
We got some guys that thankfully we can rely on that are a lot more squared away and experienced at hunting than we are, and which is awesome. It's one of the benefits of having a good team of dudes.
Yep.
It just so happens we got some veteran hunters in our squadron, but
squadron.
We have a full-blown squadron, dude.
We're just Cav Scouting about.
But yeah, so that's what we're getting into today, actually. Well, it's not. That's not what we're getting into, but we're getting into team stuff today.
Yeah.
Training again. Coming back at you again with the team related podcast.
Yeah, we got into how to build a team and how to structure it, kind of in a few podcasts ago. So if you haven't listened to that one and you're interested in basically the startup, and not even just the startup. So even if you have a team and you're like kind of just trying to find direction, that's not a bad podcast to go listen to. But this was actually kind of spurred on by one of our audience members.
A few.
A few. Yeah, but one of them directly, I think we actually had like a conversation back and forth, but then we've heard it since then, and it was kind of just like, it just turned into, we're planning on doing it. But I don't remember who it was, but they reached out and basically were like, hey man, awesome podcast, but you guys talked about the training side a little bit. We kind of briefly touched it. but how do you go about actually training? So we were going to do this episode basically going over some of the different things you can actually train on, and then also like how we actually go about training on those things. So there's different ways to train.
Yep.
And if you're like, well, that's just dumb that you guys are doing it that way, then do it however way you want to do it. Then.
Yeah. Yeah, that other podcast was titled How to Form and Cultivate a Team, and I'll have it linked below. So if you go down in the description, you'll see it, and you can take your finger and poke it, and it'll take you right to where you need to go. Give it the old push. So we also have on Spotify, if you listen on Spotify, which I want to say, I don't remember what the analytics are currently, but it's close to 80% of our audience is on Spotify. So shout out to that, whatever that means. But there you go. If you are listening from Spotify, we've been doing the little polls and the like, hey, let us know what you think about this episode and all that. Definitely interact there. Quick heads up, we can't reply to you for some reason. I've had a lot of people be like, what do you think about this? And I'm just like, dude, I wish I could talk to you, but Spotify doesn't give creators a way to actually reply, which is so weird. You'd think you could, but I guess that the let us know what you thought of the episode, or the little like add a comment section on the Spotify thing is more for just
reviews,
audience.
Maybe?
It's more for like audience conversation. So, because you can add comments talking to people, but you can't. There's no way. So, like, just so you know, if a question's come in, we're not ignoring it. It's just that I don't have a way. I don't know who you are. There's no like email connected to it. It just says a fan has responded to your thing, and you're just like, oh, and you look at it, and it'll say, like the username, whatever the username is, and it'll say, cool. We actually.
No.
Yeah. We had a guy. I gotta tell this. We got our first hate mail. No, not really. But we did have somebody go. It made me laugh so hard because it was so accurate. He said, "Yeah." He went, I wish I had it. I wish I could pull it up and actually read it. But it was. I'm paraphrasing, but it was along the lines of like, yeah, bro, dude, yeah, the gym, sick, bro. Oh, yeah, no, for real. Yeah, you guys lost me about 45 minutes. He said for about 45 minutes of that straight, you lost me. And then he said, kisses. We'll try again later, or something like that. And I was like, that is hilarious. Like, it was like in all caps, too, so I could tell he was mad, but it just made me laugh. So thanks for that. If you did decide to come back and give us a chance, I'll return your kisses to you because it made me laugh. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because we had a poll in there, and it was, where are you at with your team building? And I think the poll is still active. Yeah, actually it's it's very much still active. So if you missed the poll and you listen on Spotify, feel free to go in there and take your finger and tap it and go, and it's gonna add the percentage. But I was like, you know what? That's a pretty cool feature. So based on that poll, I think it gives us a good idea of kind of where everybody's at. And it says, where are you at with your team building? And the first option is it says I joined a team. The second is I just started a team. The third is part of a thriving team. The fourth is I want to start a team. The fifth is I'm going it solo. And then the sixth is can't find people or a team. So kind of starting from the top. So at that, I joined a team. So 0%. So nobody's clicked on that one. The next one down, I just started a team. 16% of the votes have led or added up to that one. 8% are part of a thriving team. 41% say they want to start a team, which would mean they obviously haven't yet. 0% going it solo, so that's good. And then 33% can't find people or a team. So that kind of tells me that, there's a lot of work to be done on the actual building portion of the team. So definitely encourage you to listen to that episode. We might have said bro and dude and yo a lot in it or whatever, but because I think that was the episode the guy sent that on. But bear with us because I think it's actually doing really well. It's one of our best episodes. Analytically, I'm not just tooting our own horn here. I mean, I think I had a fun time doing it.
Yeah.
But just statistically, it's one of our better episodes, and I think for good reason. I don't think there's very many people that have really broken it down for a group that is specifically in this realm. So that kind of Modern Minuteman type of group. There's a lot of people trying to do it, but it's hard. It's logistically, there's a lot that you have to think about. And if you're the one deciding to do it, like I said, 41%? Yeah, 41% said, I want to start a team. Well, I hope you do. And if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I think I've said this phrase a lot, but you get to a point in life where you look around and you go, man, I wish somebody would do this, or I wish somebody would do that. And then you end up figuring out like, man, it's me. I got to be the one to do it. I use that kind of analogy often, and it's because it's more and more throughout my life I've noticed that is the way that things are. It's like, stop waiting around and decide and do it. And it's kind of like the whole, if you build it, they will come thing. And it's true. Start making it happen. You need one other person that you can trust that shares your vision, and you can really start going. So we're not going to get into all the nuance and basics of building a team, since we did that in that last episode. So please go check it out if you haven't already. Now, if you did listen to that episode and you're tuning into this one, this is kind of a part two. I think it is very separate because they're very different things, because this will obviously apply to excuse me. This will also apply to people who have already been a part of a team or are kind of the leadership structure of a team. Yeah. But maybe things have gone stale, or maybe they're like, hey man, we go to the range every week and we have a really good chemistry of guys, a really good group of guys. What's the next step? But it's also going to apply to those people that are brand new. They have maybe one guy, or they're like, hey, I'm starting a team. Well, these tips that we're going to give you, I think will help you a lot too, because it's going to give you a lot of perspective and a lot of kind of ideas on planning how you're going to structure your training moving forward. Yeah.
And also, I mean, even if you're just an individual and you can start working on some of these trainings that we're going to go over, it's not 100%. Some of it's just not going to be applicable, just because there's certain things that we're going to go over that you just can't do just like solo.
Right.
But there are things that you can start working on, so that way you refine those skills, so you have something to offer to a group later on down the road, or whatever that may be. So,
yep.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
I guess the importance of training once you have a team. I mean, obviously, you have a group of guys. Why is it important to continue to train, I guess? And I think the first thing, obviously, that would come to everyone's mind is, well, you're going to get better. So,
mind shattering, groundbreaking.
Yeah.
No, it's important to point out because, and actually, one of the guys in our group said this recently, and I really liked what he said. He said, we were kind of talking about our team, like our specific team's vision and stuff like that, and he said, we really need to make sure that everybody in the team understands that training is one of our top priorities right now. He's like, it's our responsibility. He's like, if we're preparing for something to happen, pray that we never have to do anything. Pray that the most operational we get is just like community involvement. Like helping with blood drives, or volunteering at the food bank, or whatever your community involvement is. Volunteering at local churches. Hopefully that's the extent of it. But our primary focus and our primary responsibility right now is to train and to be ready. That's the whole point of all this. So yeah, you're training because you're preparing for a moment that may never come, but it may very well come. And for you to basically be like the grasshopper, where you play around the whole time and don't take anything serious. And then winter comes and you're screwed, Yep. Be more like the ants in that old parable or story or whatever you want to call it, and prepare.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of one of my buddies who retired out of the military. He said that in the 90s, when they weren't in a wartime, so before Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, however you want to look at it, but he was saying that his training cycle was much, much more intense because there wasn't a defined enemy at the time. So you're working on a lot of differing skills because it's not so pinpointed on, hey, we're dealing with Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So what's going to come with that? You're talking about different climates, different methods of war, whether that's chemical or just like actual just small arms or whatever you're dealing with, So he was just saying that it seemed like it was way more intense because you're getting flooded with that much more information.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same it would be for preparing for something that may never happen, is you got to kind of be capable in all areas.
Yeah, you got to be very flexible, and anything, small unit related is going to require all of its members to wear a lot of hats. So everybody in the team has to be good at several things, because you don't have the benefit of having specialty positions where that's all they ever have to work on. Now, you will have specialty positions for sure. And maybe the follow on to this will be like how to actually, structure positions within the team and have like specialty disciplines. But it's not like the military where you can have a mortarman and that's what he does. You could have a mortarman that'd be sick, but I'm just saying, you probably don't have the numbers and therefore have the luxury to have super specific job descriptions. You're going to have guys that have to be able to do a lot. So a lot more akin to what you see in some of the special operations teams and stuff like that, where guys are very specialized and skilled at certain things for sure. But like you might have a commo guy or a medic or whatever, but they're able to do a menagerie of other skills and do them to a high level. On top of that, logistically, you have to be prepared for, again, a variety of possible scenarios. You can what if the thing to death, but at the end of the day, you have to pick some things that you're going to be able to do as a team and be good at doing that. Mm-hmm. Good to the point of being a professional. I don't agree with the idea of, hey, what do you guys think about doing this? It's like, oh, cool. And then you do it one time and you never do it again. It's like, if it's going to be a discipline that you're going to be able to do as a group, and it's something you're going to be able to aid your community in, whether that's like physical fighting or whatever it ends up being, again, look over at Ukraine and what's happening there, where they're actually in physical conflict often. Whether it's that or it's natural disaster, whatever the case may be, it's like, these are things that you've prepared for, or these are things you'll have to prepare for. And if you don't, then what's the point? And I think that's kind of looking back at what one of our guys said, it's our responsibility to train and to be as good as we can be in the areas that we think are important to train in. Yeah, that's our current responsibility. That's our objective right now.
Yep, and by doing that, obviously, it increases your capability, just like what you were saying. It just allows you to have better response in general as far as whatever life throws at you.
Yeah.
You're capable of dealing with that as a group instead of like trying to take it on solo or whatever you want to do. But if you're prepared for it, then it's going to make it that much easier.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cool byproducts too that you start to get out of that. And I think a lot of people think specifically about the skills, and this might sound like I'm kind of starting to backpedal. No, it won't. Never mind. Obviously, you need to build these skills. That's objective number one. Train, become as good as you can, increase your capabilities as a team. The obvious things like you're going to personally get better, but also your team's going to get better. And then you get some cool byproducts like team chemistry. Your team is going to start to build bonds with one another, and you're going to start to, as you work together, and it's not just like on any one thing, it's across the board. As you spend time with one another doing, skill level tasks together, or just kind of even just in the suck together, like going out and suffering well with one another,
Yeah.
Fellowship under suffering. But yeah, all those things are going to build your trust in one another. It's going to build your understanding of one another. It's also going to build your reliance. Like you're going to, like, I know what Steven's able to do and what he's not able to do for the most part. But what I know for sure is that you're a reliable person, and you're someone that I know, like, man, if I went down, Steven's going to stop at nothing to get me out of there. You know? Or if Steven's separated with another group and I'm over here or whatever it is, I know you're going to know what's going on, because we have that pre-existing chemistry.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't just automatically get.
You don't get that overnight. That's something you have to work really hard toward. And it's not going to happen in one training event. No. It's not going to happen in 10 training events. It's going to be a long period of time. And I think, like what you said, going through the suck I think that's where you build some of the best bonds with, and I'm going to be a little gender specific, but with other men in general.
Yeah.
Because men are wired to, we're always sizing each other up. So there's actually a little bit of I think it actually increases mental health in a way by going through hard times for a guy, especially a younger guy, like in your 20s and 30s and stuff like that, even in your teens, is going through times that test you and you come out victorious on the other side. And you're going to have failures too, but as long as you keep going and keep attempting to power through and actually have that victory, then it gives you like self-worth, I guess. So you double down on that, and you do that with a group of other men, and you're all working toward the same goal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I think that's, I think it's super powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And going back to kind of what you said about it's not going to happen overnight. It's probably not going to happen in the first 10 trainings or whatever. I'd argue that it could even be challenging for the first few, especially if it's something that you're not as comfortable doing. You're someone that's not, whether it's just part of your personality or this is very new. It's like something that you've never really done before. It's something that's going to require effort. It's a kind of a two-way street. It's like you're gonna, it's a cliche thing to say, but I say it often. It's because it's true, and it's you're gonna get into it you're gonna get out of it what you put into it.
Yep.
And it's very applicable to things like building bonds with other people and building chemistry. It's a two-way street. It's a conveyor belt. It's like you got to send stuff in and stuff comes back and vice versa. It's just like, it's a constant flow. And some guys, I think we talked about this in that last episode about this topic, but how to cultivate a team or whatever. But for some guys, things click fast, and it's like, like I've met people before where it's just automatically like, yep, I get along with this guy, boom, and you're just good to go, and you just grow into knowing each other more and more. Yeah. But then there's some people that can't do that. It's going to take them a long time. It's hard for them to trust people. And then there's sometimes it's in between. Like I've had people before that I, kind of butt heads with, or there seems to be like tension, and then, but you can work through that. And, I've absolutely had to do that before. Like when you and I were in the military, there was guys we probably both didn't get along with. I mean, I know there was for me, I'm just assuming for you, but you have to get along with them. Like, and that's kind of the benefit too of building a team. You can, I don't want to say hand select because sometimes personalities are just personalities, but you do have the benefit of kind of picking people that you jive well with. And that, again, that goes back to how to build a team. We talked about that pretty heavily, in depth.
Yeah.
In that. So I don't want to get too far down into that, but, once you've got those good characters all together, it should start to kind of happen, but it's not just going to be automatic. I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that you're going to have to put in the effort and you're going to have to spend the time. And it's something that might take several events and training sessions and, you really going outside of your comfort zone to connect with guys in there. But man, once you have that connection, it's going to be incredible, because it is very mental health related. And I think it's why we see so much depression and degraded confidence and poor self-image,
Yeah, it doesn't help that masculinity's getting masculinity's getting neutered in a way.
Yeah.
That's not helping, and I think it's being done for a purpose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you feel like you're being I don't know, you can't be yourself because of I don't know what's going on in the world right now.
It's just social constructs.
Yeah.
It's literally discrimination in a way.
Yeah.
All this stuff that's going on against specifically men, and the attack on masculinity. It's it's a form of radical discrimination in a way, because the whole toxic, that's a whole other conversation, but the whole toxic masculinity thing is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There's masculinity and there's femininity. There's no, we don't have toxic masculinity. There's toxic people. There's toxic behavior regardless. But men are supposed to be more we're more masculine. That's the way it is. And that doesn't mean that every man has to be super alpha masculine male, but it's more natural for us to be that way. And I think you're going to see a huge reward out of enjoying those natural attributes and features that we have as men.
Yeah.
And acting on that with other men.
Going
out.
We're naturally pack animals, so there's no denying that. You can look at someone that's been locked into just segregated for a long period of time, in a prison system, and obviously they degrade quickly. Some quickly, more fast than others, but you need to have communication with others, and that also is good for mental health as well. But anyways.
Yeah. And then this kind of all ties in together, but the other byproduct I was going to say that this, again, just been leading up to it, is basically building a strong and unwavering brotherhood. Yeah. So having a group of guys that you can trust like family, which again takes a lot of time. And it's one of those things too, where it's an ongoing effort. There's guys in our group that are probably still working towards that, or maybe there's guys that I'm still working towards that with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But honestly, we're to a point now with the people in our group where we can trust them all. I do at least.
Yeah.
So, which is cool, because that takes a lot of time, and I think we talked about it in the other episode, but it should be to the level where, if you weren't there and they had to take care of your family, it's that level of trust of that they will be able to do it, and they will do it in a way that's going to maintain your family's
in a respectful manner,
dignity and well-being to the highest degree possible. And that's something that is not easy to do and find. It's not really something you can find, I would say. It's something that has to be built.
Yeah.
But anyways, so you can bottom or end of the story with that is that training together helps you towards all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to train. Otherwise you're just going to be maybe like a group of buddies that occasionally go get coffee with each other or whatever.
Yeah. And if that's what you want it to be, then that's a whole different thing. But from this perspective of building a modern Minuteman culture, a community of men who are physically able and willing to kind of stand in the void and protect their families and communities and the vulnerable, which the more people doing that, the better. But if that's what it's about, you can't just play Call of Duty and read forums on the internet and just absorb the information. Like you're gonna have to go put in the work. So just like working out, like if you're not fit, then you're gonna be in trouble, and that obviously applies too. So all the things that we always talk about are tied into that. So yeah, but we'll get into the bread and butter here of what this is mainly going to be about, which is going to be about training, different ways you can train, specifics. We're going to talk about some specifics that are at least, and I don't think we're going to cover all of the things that we think are important, but we're going to lay out a good wide variety of different things. To at least give you ideas so that, like I said before, if you are in a team and maybe it's gotten stale or you're building one and you're like, man, I don't really know where to start. Like there's some obvious things that, we go to the range or we all go to the gym together, or like, hey, we're ruck marching, maybe those are kind of all the things you're doing. What are some other things we can specifically start working on? We're going to actually give some specifics. And then the other thing we want to try to do is give examples of how you can work on these things. Because there's a lot of people too that reach out to us and they're like, we don't even know where to go do this at.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, a lot of that's going to be on you. You're going to have to do a little homework and figure out, because we know what it's like where we're at and we're able to do what we do where we live. So it's going to be tough for people that live in certain areas, and that's where you're going to have to really start to get creative. But we'll give you some ideas along the way if we can.
Yeah. So in no specific order, we'll just kind of knock through some of these skill sets and then kind of like how we go about training in that manner. So for some infantryman skills, I got on here as a list: patrolling, battle drills, LDA crossings, patrol base, area denial, LPOPs, rucking, signaling. Okay, so
acronyms.
Yeah, listening post, observation post for LPOP and LDA.
Linear danger area.
Danger area. Yeah,
it's a road basically. We're not going to get into LDAs right now. My brain was like, explain an LDA in full detail.
Yeah, no, we're not.
No, there's other podcasts for that.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about another podcast.
Yeah, I think our intro to patrolling, we get into it quite a bit. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, scroll back. We're going to continuously hit this stuff. So
yeah, and actually everything on here will probably be something that we discuss, whether it's in passing through a podcast, like we'll break it down, or it'll be like actually a podcast that's directly about that. Mm-hmm. So for this kind of stuff, you got to understand every person has like a way they learn. So that's one thing to understand.
Yep.
You got your guys who can read stuff and they learn stuff really well by reading. Some people need to listen. They learn by someone actually presenting it to them, like in a teaching format, like what we did in school.
Yep.
And then you got your physical learners who actually go in and have to physically get hands on in order to learn it.
Yep.
So what me and Jacob suggest and what we try to do is you try to hit all three. Yep. That kind of covers all the bases for everyone that's going to be in your group. Even if everyone is a hands-on learner in the group, it's still good to hit all three because it really sets it in. So like for me, and I think Jacob too, I'm a hands-on learner. I sucked in school. Like I hated it. I was bored and just like, this is trash, sitting there and listening. But it's still important to go in there and do that. Like I still learn that way. It's not like I don't learn that way. I just learn better by actually physically going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I got to like figure it out for myself or whatever. But, so for this stuff, obviously breaking it down, whether that's, so how we like to do it is if there's someone that's kind of the subject matter expert in whatever we're working on, we'll have them run the class. Mm-hmm. They can send links of like reading information or, hey, read through this article to try to learn about this. You got books. Hey, let's have this book, read it whenever you get a chance, kind of thing, leading up to this training. Okay. And then you go into like a class format. Mm-hmm. So let's take patrolling, for example. So you get up on a whiteboard and you break it down. Okay, these are different formations. This is how, depending on what kind of terrain you're going through, you're going to move into this formation. Where's your weaknesses? Where's your strengths? And this, kind of break it down super simple.
Yep.
And then for the last piece of information, you got to go out there and actually do it.
Yeah.
And that's where you start seeing everyone that was acting like, oh, yeah, I got it. Yep, it's locked in. Somehow it's their first time ever doing it. And somehow it's the first time they've ever seen like anything. And somehow they've got it
they
locked in.
They already know it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they go out there and they just look like trash.
Look like Raggedy Andy out there.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
For some of this stuff, you're going to be able to break it down like together. So, like, you could go out and like we'll go to public land. It doesn't have to be your own land. If you have a huge chunk of land, it's your own land, then sweet.
Yep.
Go train on it.
And I think a lot of people, let me kind of wade into these waters for a second. A lot of you that live in areas where you don't, so here in Alaska, we have the luxury of having huge, enormous, it's the biggest state in the U.S. by a massive margin. Like you can fit Texas 5 times, I think, maybe 6 times into Alaska. So Texas, you're looking pretty tiny. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm serious though. It's pretty small down there. We have massive areas of land that are just public land that are just, if you want to go out there, then go. So having areas to do that, it's, there's a lot, but it's kind of easier said than done because the majority of that land is untouched for a reason. It's super hard to get to. It's like austere, massive mountain ranges, immense, just swampy tundra for hundreds upon hundreds of square miles, crazy rivers, oceans. Like it's in the wintertime, it's just snowy and crazy. So easier said than done. We have a ton of land here. A lot of it's hard to get to. And the state is so vast that, you could drive for hours and not get very far because you have to take all these windy routes in between the valleys of mountains and stuff like that and around peninsulas and, So the point I'm making is we have we kind of have a weird problem here where it's a massive amount of land. So we don't really have a shortage on areas we can go train, but it has to be convenient. It has to be a place that we can get to. And then at the end of the day, it's like we want it to be close to our home because we want to train in the area that we could potentially have to operate in. Yeah. This is our area of operations, where we live. So that's the whole point of being that Modern Minuteman. It's like you're going to respond to your local area of operation, which is your local community. But many of you are going to live in an area where land laws are very different. You're not just you might not have, large swaths of just open land that you can go do whatever on. Or if you do have some of that, you've got so many people that many people are using it. Like I know, like I just recently learned from one of my buddies in the South. He was telling me about how, I think it's called a high density, I can't remember the official name for it, but basically hunting in highly populated areas where you have minimal, like legal hunting land. And you end up, that's why you have weird rules where guys have to wear orange and stuff like that. Like none of that exists here. I've always thought that's so weird. I'm like, why would you wear like bright orange? What's the hunter orange thing all about? And it's like, well, it's so you don't accidentally shoot another hunter because you're going to just run into them all the time. And they're out there hunting and you might see one and, your yellow tinted glasses and your old squinty eyes just can't tell if that's a, that's a deer or a person out there. And you just, wow. Wild. Anyways, yeah, so
gotta get that PID, dude.
You gotta get that PID. But, dude, guys out here wearing their mossy oak hat and they're in orange. Got their glasses on and can't see that far, son. No. Anyways, so it's a different world there in some places. So that's going to be tough. So I think you really got in on it, private property. And I think if you're able to find people and build good relationships with them and start seeing if you can go out there and, start small, and there's favors you can do.
Yeah, I was about to say, the favors, man. There's a lot of older people that can't maintain their land as well as they used to be able to, that sit on huge chunks of land. Yeah. And it's like, hey, if we come in and mow your 3 acres of grass, is it okay if we use your land just for this and that? We like to train and do this. Or you don't even have to be that. You don't even have to be that up front. You could just tell them,
yeah. What works really good is saying that you do search and rescue. Telling people, dude, it works good.
Oh, it does.
Tell people
just telling all our secrets,
I got a group of guys. You got a group of guys. I mean, don't lie. I would hope that we'll talk about that later. But
yeah,
if you don't do any search and rescue, then don't use this. That would be random.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to get into helping with search and rescue, that's a great hey, we practice, or we have a group of guys and we volunteer search and rescue, but we like to be able to keep our skills strong. Is there a way we can go out there and work on, use your land to work on search and rescue? And not very many people are going to say no to something like that. So I'm not saying to deceive people. I don't want it to come off that way, but you don't have to be, you don't have to be coming out there with 13 guys. We're going to be, here's our, here's our op board,
Yeah.
Obviously there's a blend between being vague for just the betterment of your team's security and stuff like that. But also, I don't know. I don't want that to get taken the wrong way. I might backpedal a little bit. The search and rescue thing, that should be something that you're doing. I don't want you to use a weird excuse and then they come out and find you doing you're doing L-shaped ambushes. But
yeah, and that's what I was saying. Maybe just being up front.
Yeah,
I don't think it's very dependent on your environment. Some people may not want that at all. Some people would be perfectly happy with people doing that, I think.
Yeah.
So it's just very dependent. That's why it's important to build the relationship too, because then they understand that you're not some shady
weirdo. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm out here going to take advantage of people with my newfound skills that I just learned in your backyard.
Yeah. It's if you're trying to build a relationship with somebody that's got private, chunks of land that they would potentially let you use, it's probably not something to ask on the first day,
Yeah.
Hey, can we come out here and clean up some trash? We'll help you bale some hay. Following up with that of can I bring 8 guys out here and work on this and that? It's that's probably not going to work. So it's going to be an investment.
Yeah.
But
also, there is public land too, though. That's the thing. You may have to travel a little bit to get to it. So planning out the events that are going to be you're going to plan on being in the field for at least one night or maybe multiple nights. That's going to be something that's you're going to have to put in some effort toward.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to do that regardless if you have the property available or not. So
yeah,
it's going to be one of those things where you're going to have to plan in advance and everyone's going to have to work to get on board to actually be there and do
travel.
The thing.
If you got to travel to it, so be it. Use for you hunters out there, the Onyx app.
Yeah.
It's really good at showing what land is where, shows plats of land and what you can do on what, that way you don't accidentally end up on somebody's private property and you got some explaining to do if you get caught. It's going to look kind of weird if you're out there all decked out with rucksacks on and rifles practicing infantry skills. It's going to be what is going on out here?
Yeah.
So you definitely don't want that. You again, we talked about this in the other podcast, but you want to be viewed in a positive light always, if you can be. So things like, going back to what you're saying, things like transparency and being upfront are definitely the way to go. One, it's the right thing to do. It's just being honest. Two, it's like, if you get the okay to go train on whatever, then you've got the okay. I mean, we've done favors for people where it's like, hey, if you need help with this and that, would it be possible to come over here and do this or whatever?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and it's upfront and straightforward, and it's like, that's the way to do it. But, but the Onyx app, going back to that, I mean, that's something that hunters use, and it's, it's a service that it's as accurate as it can be. And here, at least in Alaska, we've found that it's even more accurate than like the Burrow website, where it shows like what land is what, which is pretty funny because I think it pulls a lot of most of its information. I think it's pulling from some of those sources.
Yeah.
At least I'm assuming it is. I don't know for sure. But that service is well funded, and a lot of hunters use it, and it's very accurate from what I've seen, at least here. Might be different where you're at. Again, you got to do your own research, but that's going to be such a powerful tool, something like that. You can also just go on your, like a county, we have a borough here, but like the borough parcel viewer is what it's called here. And you just go on there and you can click on parcels of land and see who owns it. And if it's state land, if it's Alaska DNR, then it's like, cool. We can go out there and do whatever on that land. So, and thankfully we live in a state that's they don't care what you're doing as long as you're not doing anything illegal. So, that's going to be for pretty much everything we're going to cover. Land, and that's a huge question we get often. It's like, where do I find the land to work on stuff like this? And it's going to take some effort on your end, especially if you're someone that's starting a team or you've got a team and you're trying to plan these events. That's something that needs to be well coordinated before you take all your guys out there. Like, something that Steven and I do often when we're planning events is we'll go check it out beforehand.
Yeah.
We'll do a little leaders recon and go out there and be like, is this going to actually work? And there's been times we've gone out to places and we're like, nah, this ain't going to work. This is random. It's not what we thought it was. And it's kind of, feels like you wasted some time, but you really didn't, because you learned something about that area. What you learned is you're probably not going to try to go there again, or whatever. But
and being willing to actually take up time and do that, whether it's you and another person or just take it on for yourself to go check things out, because that's so important. Otherwise, you're just gonna end up bringing everyone out there and wasting their time instead of just wasting your own time. So, but like another thing that you can do, which we've done quite a few times, and it's kind of a way of physically learning, but also kind of but like exercises as far as like patrolling is a great example, but you could do the same thing with like react to ambush or whatever. We'll go on to like Google Earth and just print off like a big plot of the map, and give each person a thing. And it's like, okay, show us how you would move through this area, knowing that enemies in this spot or whatever it may be. I think that's like a really cool way to do it. And you're indoors, you're able to do that in your grandma's basement if you wanted to. So it's not like you have to have super high capabilities in order to do something like that. And then at the end you present it. So like we'll like form guys in 2-man teams and they get to like brainstorm through it and then figure it out.
Yeah, that's a good way to engage people without having to go out and physically do stuff. And it doesn't require anything. Like you said, you can be in your basement, you can meet at somebody's house, whatever. Now I do want to reiterate that, Stephen brought up the different learning methods and we try to hit on all of them. But the most important one is physically going and doing it. Yeah. And I want to back up for a second because I meant to talk about this and then we kind of started getting into some specifics. So, going out and doing it is not only actually learning the info, because that's where you put all the pieces together. But it's learning how to do that skill with everybody else. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about or don't understand until they've done it a lot, how much that actually matters. That's like, you could be the best basketball player in the world. You know, you could practice by yourself all the time and have super good mechanics. Your shot is crazy. Your handling skills are incredible, you know, but until you implement those skills with a team and actually learn how to move around another team, it doesn't matter how good you are, because you're just going to get isolated and destroyed by that other team.
Yeah.
And if that team doesn't know how to integrate your skills with how it operates, then it's not going to work. That's why you see so many, you know, like all-star teams and stuff like that in the NBA don't necessarily work, just because you take all the best players from all the different teams and you put them together. Well, they've never played together before, so a lot of times it's kind of weird. It's like, why aren't they just absolutely smashing everybody that they're playing?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's some of their first times ever playing together, and they don't have team chemistry. So going out and physically doing the thing together as a group is the most important thing you can do. And that should be the end goal of all the topics that you're working on. There's going to be like individual skill things that you can work on, like little skill workshops. You know, that's something that...
Yeah, like in this list of like things, like patrolling is kind of tough to do, actually.
By
like
yourself.
you can talk about formations within patrolling.
Yeah.
But actually going out and patrolling and making sure that you're actually like keeping security in the proper areas and all this stuff. Some of that stuff's like, you almost got to physically go out there and do it in order to like really do it.
For sure. Yeah.
You know, doing sills and stop, look, listen, smell, doing all that stuff, making sure to always get behind cover when you do stops. Just all that, like, it's stuff that you have to go over and talk about prior to going out there and doing it, because it's not like someone's just going to naturally know how to do that. Like, you're going to have to, like, okay, today we're going to learn about this, and you're learning about the academic portion of it, but until you physically go out there and do it, you're not going to know. LDA crossing, you can do that in a like a whiteboard setting, like writing on a whiteboard, and show the methods of doing an LDA crossing where you actually have security.
Yeah.
But until you go out there and do it, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes more sense now, because now I'm physically going out there and actually having to do it versus just like looking at it on a screen or whatever.
Yeah, because there's a lot of timing and trust and, like, you know, like spatial awareness that you have to have in order to be good at those. You know? And there's a lot of things that would apply to that. But the other reason that you need to go out too and do the physical training is because it is proving to everybody else that you're able to do it. And that sounds kind of weird, but it's kind of a
it's like going back to the whole thing. Everyone's sizing each other up.
Yep.
And it's like not in a bad way, but like that's how, you know, Jacob was talking about how he trusts me, and the same goes for him. But that's why we have each other's trust. It's not just because we're brothers. It's because, like, because there's guys out there, and I've heard it millions of times, like, they don't have, just because they're brothers doesn't mean that they have trust in each other.
Yeah.
That trust comes from actually being able to physically see someone do something and know that not only do they have the character to do the right thing, but also they're capable of doing it as well.
Yeah.
Because if you may be the best person in the world, but if you're not capable of doing the thing, then I probably don't have trust that you're going to get it done. And it's not that I don't think that your intentions are good. I just think, like, he's not physically going to be able to do that task.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen him do it before, and every time he's tried, he's just failed. So he's going to fail this time too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have no confidence in him. So it's a confidence builder for yourself, but also for all of your teammates to go out and physically do it. So I think that's kind of in a nutshell, like, that's the ultimate goal of the training.
Jacob's ears are on fire right now, dude. Anyways,
Steven was I keep taking my headset off. I'm so glad we don't film this podcast. We get asked all the time, like, are you guys gonna ever film it? No, dude. No, we might, but it's gonna look random though, because I am doing some random stuff right now.
He kills me, man, because I like start laughing, and everyone's like, "What's he laughing about?"
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, dude, if you guys could see what I could see right now.
And it's also just knowing each other really well. So
Yeah,
you know, all Steven did was make like a very subtle face, and it was enough to just make me start laughing because I knew exactly what he was referring to.
yeah.
But anyways,
And then really quick before we get off the infantryman skills, because I feel like, well, first battle drills, I put that in there. That's a wide variety of things, so that's a lot of stuff.
yeah, super basic, but oh man, it covers a lot of stuff, and it's
Dude,
important.
what a great place to start for like team building exercises in general, just for like building that chemistry. Because for one, it's kind of fun, and for two, it like really like demonstrates how your team works together.
Yeah. Well, it requires a lot out of everybody.
It requires a team. You can't do that as an individual.
Yeah, it is. You have to be coordinated to pull it off.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it as an individual, and there's no it requires everybody to be coordinated. Like you can't just have, if somebody's doing something random when you're practicing basic battle drills, the whole thing's going to look stupid. It's going to fall apart and be trash.
Yeah, and if you don't know what I'm talking about for battle drills, just look up the U.S. Army battle drills, and it'll pop up.
We've got content coming too, so look them up though. But don't wait for our content, because who knows when that'll be. So
yeah,
just being real. But soon, hopefully, I would like to do a full Instagram series on the battle drills. But definitely look them up, and at first glance, it might not apply, or you might think it doesn't apply, but even if it doesn't, it's like Steven said, it's fun. It's a good way to work on coordination. It's going to get you outside of your comfort zone a little bit. It requires physicality and, a lot. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. The other thing too is like infantryman skills. Why is that kind of the starting point? Well, because because again, what was the Minuteman? What was the primary purpose?
And I didn't intentionally put infantryman skills first, but that is a good place to start.
Oh, okay.
I did say not really in order at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you can keep going with what you're going with, because I don't.
Yeah.
But it just happened to work out that way.
Sweet. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like we've said it before, but it's kind of the reawakening of the American rifleman. Yeah. Like the original Minuteman was someone that was ready to go and ready to fight if they needed to, and that was like where their disciplines were: quick deployment, quick reaction, had their kit ready to go, and they trained and were capable, and they were able to go out there and accurately engage and maneuver on threats, which in modern day fighting, infantryman skills are just gonna be right at home with that.
Yep.
And a close second to that, which I'm sure is in the list somewhere, so I won't get too far into it, but it's marksmanship and team marksmanship.
Before you get into that, though.
What?
Oh, you're just.
I was just saying it.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just saying, like, those two things together are great places to start.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would be interested in it. It's a good way to kind of hook people, if you will.
Yeah.
And then it's fun, and you can always go back to it as a basic, because at its core, the modern Minuteman is a fighting force. It's a group of riflemen that are capable of a lot of other things. As an infantryman is, there's a lot of skill. What would they call it in the Army? Level 1 skills.
Yeah.
Level 1 skills, which are just like your infantryman skills, which covers tons of stuff.
It kind of goes back to that adage of like, better to be a warrior in the garden than a
gardener at war.
A gardener at war. So get your warrior skills locked in first, and then figure out how to garden.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into that later as well. But but on the number one battle drill that gets everyone's love and attention is Battle Drill 6, and that's entering and clearing rooms.
Yeah.
All right. So that one is actually really easy to work on.
Yeah.
If you have a group of guys, that means you have a group of houses.
Yeah.
Okay. It's this crazy thing. Usually, I mean, that's maybe you got a homeless person in the group, but sweet.
Here we go. Here we go.
No, dude. Oh man. We might have to put the link of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. That'd be random. Anyways,
she's ex-Catholic by her demand, but she didn't want to do this too much of a challenge. Here we go.
No, dude.
Dude, it's this clip. I got to talk about this for a second. It's
No,
this
I'd
clip.
rather someone just send it to us.
Oh, dude, that's it. Okay. If you know what I'm talking about.
No, speaking of that, let's put it to bed.
All right, put it to bed.
What am I putting to bed again?
Crossfire Trail.
Oh, yeah, Crossfire Trail. If you're emailing us about
Walter.
Yeah, the Hello Walter.
We have a winner.
We have a winner. He won a long time ago, and then
Yep.
people continue to email us wrong answers, and
He's the only one that got it.
Yeah.
Tons of people emailed us, which awesome, good job, but no, you were wrong. Except for
try
literally
again.
yeah.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, I almost want to get a little bit more out there for you.
No,
But
they'll find it immediately.
no, I'm not I'm not going to play it. Hold on. I literally have it because it's like one of my favorite things I've seen in a while.
You just gonna read it off?
Yeah, no, not all of it, but now now she's reporting her neighbor, who's ex-Catholic by her demand, and we're not supposed to talk to her. Well, she doesn't know what to do. She says to stop on the coffee mill. She says she hates me ever since I arrived. Says I'm not going to go on because it would be too challenging in court. That I would not be an occupant of an assembly hall in her state. That there's a message to her client, not yet is available policy. And then she said, but she doesn't want the challenge. Okay, that's all I'm going to do.
Dude, you delivered it perfectly, dude.
If you know it, dude, that is so random that's on the podcast because 99.9999% of everybody that listens to that is going to have no clue what that's about, and it's pointless to the progression of the rest of this episode. So there you go.
And we're sorry.
Randomly, yeah, I'm sorry. If you're like, what the heck was that? It's as random as it sounded. And if you're like, it sounded not actually, that'll give too much of a hint. But there is, if somebody knows what that is from and can send that to us, you'll get some goodies, which the last person that guessed the Crossfire Trail thing, I'll give you a hint. It's not from a movie. So don't think it's from a movie. It's not. So, but if you can find that, or if you've seen that and you have an idea, then track it down, send us the link to it. That's another.
I hope we
hint.
just get blown up in our messages with that.
Yeah,
because we love it.
It's so funny.
I'll watch it every time, all the way through.
I can't say. I'll say too much info about it and give it away. But
I think I already did.
minutemen.initiative@gmail.com. Send us the link, and then we'll, if you get it, which you'll know if you did, because if you know
the guy,
yeah.
There
we go.
We want to have him on the podcast,
oh, dude. Yeah.
All right,
dude. On his timing too. For at that time of day when he's like that, dude. Let's have him on the podcast. But anyway, anyways, send it to us. We'll give you some goodies. We're gonna try to do that. We'll sprinkle in some nonsensical goodies for you to try to snag, and then yeah, we actually got that email about the last thing so fast. It was like within 24 hours of us posting the podcast.
Yeah,
he was like,
he was a Western fan.
Yep, Crossfire Trail. And we were like, dude, you got it. So he got some goodies. But anyways, where?
Okay, so Battle Drill 6.
I know, but
you got a group of guys, you got a group of homes. I don't know where you
went for it.
Oh, because I was talking about homeless people.
Oh, I don't think he's homeless, but
anyways, go to each other's houses, and yes, your wives are going to be like, what is going on? But you can easily do this and
integrate them.
Yeah, integrate them. Or if they want to like go hang out with each other or whatever, sweet. But you have a group of houses with all different layouts. Not every house is built the same, so it's going to be like, it's going to challenge you in different ways. Like you're going to have stairways in some houses. You're going to have, corner fed rooms, center fed rooms. You're going to have all the different things to work on. So kind of cool. If there's abandoned warehouses or things that, obviously I'm not telling you to go break into places, but I'm just saying if you have access to larger buildings, you're going to get that much
barns,
that much more capability. Barns,
like that.
things like that.
Yeah.
So definitely easy to go do. You can make it happen. Ruck marching, which is kind of a physical, but it's also an infantryman skill.
Yeah.
You can do this like almost like PT in the morning.
Yeah.
Physical training. Just go out, schedule times, load up your rucks to a certain amount of weight, and go hard charge wherever you're going.
Oh, yeah.
And really, in today's world, that's looked at as like a physical exercise. So I don't really think that it gets like demonized if you're just cruising with your buddies and shorts and t-shirt with your ruck on.
Yeah, no.
Hauling down the road. So
maybe it is some places, but yeah, I think it's pretty.
I mean, we did it on military bases all the time, so I feel like they would just
anywhere that hunting's a big deal. Like around here, it's no one questions it at all because they're just like, oh, those guys are preparing for a sheep hunt or something. Yeah.
So super easy. All right, so that's pretty much it for that.
Yeah.
I think it is important though, like, yes, focus on individual skills, but ultimately have a field exercise where you're going out and you're putting a lot of those skills to the test and actually working on them.
Yeah, and why? Well, because you should already be working on individual skills. Like that's part of your own time and discipline. Don't waste team time with like individual skills. That doesn't mean don't work on individual skills together. I don't want it to come across that way. But it is really hard logistically with everyone living normal lives to get everybody together at the same time. It's hard to do. You have to schedule it out. You have to plan it, especially if you got a lot of busy schedules and stuff. So, schedule things within moderation. Like you have to.
Yeah, the bigger the team, the harder it is to make it work.
Yep.
But also the bigger the team, the more, for like your individual skills, the more people you have to pull for like going to work on those. Like if you still want to do it in like in a team setting, not the whole team's there, but you're still able to kind of work with each other and build chemistry and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
For the big overnight / multi-night trainings, everyone should try to make it and like emphasize that to your group. Like, we are trying to make this work. So like if you got to move things around or whatever it may be, to make it happen, do it, because I think it's well worth it.
Yeah, because that's where, again, it's not just about the skills, because those individual skills should already be being worked on all the time, making time for them. Like Steven was just saying, you have maybe some times where parts of the team are working on this, and maybe some guys can get together here, and then other guys can get together there. But then when you go out and do those big events, which you should try to schedule in advance just for everyone's well-being, those are things that everyone needs to be at, because that's, again, that's a testing time. That's where you're going to test the team's capabilities. You're not testing individuals at that point. When you are in a way, you're testing individuals' ability to be a good team member, but you're testing the team in its entirety. You're seeing how capable your team is doing what it's trying to do in whatever that discipline is. So don't look at those events where, you're going to get together and do whatever, and you're going to require a lot of time and effort of people. That's intentional. That's because it's tough and it's hard to make the time. It's hard to be away from family, and you know what I mean? Those are all things that are going to add up to validating your team as a whole. Yeah. So I think that's maybe a better way to look at it. And
then another thing with that is like, if you're brand new to this, like you didn't have any military experience and no one in the team does, as far as the infantryman skills, you're like, what does right look like? And that's where it's going to kind of come down to you as the leader, to really put in some effort behind the scenes to make sure that you really, really got things dialed in. Whether that's just researching or, reading the Ranger Handbook and doing all these, cliche things. I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, just read the Ranger Handbook, because that just gets thrown out there.
Yeah.
But you will learn a lot.
It's hard to dissect the Ranger Handbook too. So
yeah, it's like kind of painful to read at times.
Well, the Ranger handbook, a lot of those military handbooks are written from the context of being a soldier already.
Yeah.
So, like when you go to basic training, they don't give you on day one, they don't give you the Ranger handbook and they're like, read the Ranger handbook. It's like they give it to you when you get to your unit after you've already gone through basic and you've been at your unit for a while. Then it becomes usually like especially in the infantry, a lot of units are like, this is required reading, like read this, have this.
Yeah.
And it's like, cool, but you already have the context of what it means to be a soldier and you understand what all those acronyms mean and you understand, you already have a lot going into it. So I think things like the Ranger handbook can be hard for a civilian, someone with no context or no background in just soldiering in general. It's hard to dissect it, and there's a lot that you have to have going into it. There's a lot of forward context that's needed before you can start dissecting something like that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't read it. There's a lot of resources out there now. Honestly, like if you grab the Ranger handbook and maybe some other manuals, and then you use resources like ours, like our podcast, also our Instagram. Redbeard Tactical is a great one. He's doing really good stuff. It's just, and the stuff he doesn't do anything fancy. It's all basic infantry level skills.
Yeah.
All level 1 skills.
Yeah.
There's nothing super fancy going on. Like I have a lot of people that are like, yeah, he's doing like, it's really awesome. And it's like, it is super awesome. But there's this kind of like thought of like, man, it's super advanced stuff. And it's like, no, it's very basic, fundamental infantry skills that he's teaching, which is what's needed. I think that is, so glad at the stuff he's been able to do, and he's got a lot of content that's very fleshed out and very impressive, and that'll give you more context. There's other guys. I'm trying to think of some other people off the top of my head right now that there's a ton of people that I would love to shout out, but my brain's kind of going blank right now. But the Longhouse guys too, that's another great resource, and there's been people we've had on and people we'll have on in the future too that I would forward you to as well. But so yeah, these are things you can get and you can start compiling that knowledge, but you definitely don't want to be practicing it the wrong way. So I would definitely encourage you, if you don't have anybody in your group that has the skill, has the experience to be able to help you build that skill, then you're going to have to do your best, and that's going to require a lot of research.
Yeah.
And then maybe that means you start on some other things that you can do well. So you don't have to, again, this is not a specific order. I mean, it kind of, like I said before, I think the infantryman skills play well into the Modern Minuteman. I think it's, again, it's that reawakening that culture of the American rifleman, but it's not a prerequisite. It's not like, well, we can't practice anything else until we get really good at our infantry skills. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Are we getting attacked by a Kraken? What was that?
I don't know.
Dude.
Anyways, so we good with infantryman skills? We can kind of move on?
Yeah.
So next I have reconnaissance skills. And like I said, this isn't in any sort of order. I think infantryman skills is a good place to start just because it does test your team, like what we were originally saying. But reconnaissance skills, learning how to, for one, infill and exfil. It's going to be kind of like patrolling, but just a little bit.
There's a lot of dovetail here, like a lot of meshing of skills.
Yep. So understanding how to do a hide/surveillance site, and that's going to be in a rural area or an urban area.
Yep.
So urban areas are going to be a little easier to train. Like we said, you can do that in your own house if you wanted to. Basically, just learning how to shade the room, which we'll do a podcast on that eventually. But like basically blacking out, using sheets and stuff like that to black out rooms.
Yep.
And then also practicing it. So making sure it works. So having guys go outside the house and like actually try to look in there and see how well they can see and whatnot. So always test what you're doing as well. That's the same thing. Like when it goes back to the infantryman skills, have some sort of force that you're going against, whether that's like you ambushing someone in a patrol. So having a group of guys ready to be kind of like op 4. Is a smart way to do that. Same thing with like Battle Drill 6, doing room clearing, having guys inside the room that you're actually having to hit. Maybe not start with that, but like work toward that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put sniper disciplines in there. So that's kind of going back to that sniper cell episode that we did.
Yep.
Working on all your individual stuff as far as like working within a sniper cell. So that's going to be smaller groups, but you can do a bunch of smaller groups and make a big team event out of it.
Yeah.
That could be like something that's super cool. Is actually doing like stocks, like having guys try to go into an area and then having the rest of your group try to actually see if they can physically see them move into that, like move up on them, and then like have some weird thing that they got to identify out there. And if they can call it up, then hey, they did it without getting detected by you while you're actively trying to look for them.
Yeah.
That's just a little example of something that's done in sniper school. So I mean, that's a good way to practice that skill, but also just everything from shooting to just moving and communicating everything. So
yeah, and it's kind of funny because you keep saying you didn't put these in any specific order, but these stack so well into each other. Like these make sense for infantryman skills, and then let's refine a little bit and start talking about reconnaissance. And then, sniper cell, I think those build into each other really well. Now, why are those two last ones, the sniper cell disciplines and then the reconnaissance disciplines, why are those things that we have in here? Well, to put it simply, I think they are very, very capable of being done by a small group of people, kind of like what you said about the sniper cells. But they play, or what's the word I'm looking for here? They're they mesh. Yeah, they mesh well with smaller teams. The infantrymen skills are very basic and broad, but moving as an actual like infantry platoon, if you will, it requires a ton of people. Like a standard line infantry unit is anywhere from 35 to 50 people, depending on how you're configured. Like a standard line, U.S. Army infantry unit or platoon. I mean, so that's a lot of guys. Probably not going to have that. So your smaller, faster teams, like your reconnaissance elements, your special warfare units, your sniper detachments, different things like that. Your scout elements. Those are going to be units that are going to apply better, I think, to the modern Minuteman. Maybe not necessarily their missions, but definitely their disciplines and how they maneuver around each other and how they utilize each other. I think are going to be very telling. But you have to start. You got to crawl before you can sprint. So you got to get in with the basics and get really good at it. I'm a big believer in repetition. Get super solid at the basic stuff, the fundamental stuff.
Yeah, and it is gonna, and I actually meant to bring that up because you talked about level 1. There's gonna be times, especially if you have lots of experience in certain areas, you may just feel like, man, am I boring the crap out of the group? And even some of the guys in the group may be even bored and like feel like you're treating them like why am I getting treated like I can't process this information? But it's so important to start basic.
Yeah.
For one, there may be a guy that is actually having a hard time understanding that information. So you're fixing that issue right out the gate. For two, it may seem super basic, but people overlook stuff all the time. So you want to start there. You want to make sure everyone's on the same page. Make that foundation before you build the house, So I think it's super important to stay basic and like break it down really, really simple before you start to build on that. So
yeah, for sure.
Marksmanship and shooting.
Yep.
Stuff that most people think, oh yeah, that's what you're gonna be doing regardless. Well, a lot of people are doing it, but are they actually doing it in an efficient way and improving? So I put on here rifle long and short range. So long range, not meaning super long range, obviously, if we're talking 5.56 platforms, but stretching the legs on that. So working on that. That could be tough depending on your range, your local range. If you have a range that has distance, then sweet. Get out there, start shooting far, get dope, do all the good stuff as far as long range shooting. Make sure everyone knows how to do it. Make sure everyone knows how to use their optics, because that's super important when it comes to long range shooting, is like actually understanding your equipment and your rifle. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and specifically, this is on here for a team. It's like, do this as a group.
Yeah.
Go out with a group of guys. And yeah, it might be a range day, but I think for what you have specifically listed, Steven, these are specific disciplines, but then also like shooting as a team, like having, sectors of fire and talking the guns and different things like that. And bounding movements.
Spotting.
These are things that require more people than just you. Like, again, all of your individual skills of like being a good shooter, those are things that, sure, work with those things with guys in the team, in your group, because you should all be buddies and you should be working together all the time. But when you get the whole group together to go to a training, like, everyone should be competent, Yeah. And you need to be working to get everybody up to a competency level of being professional,
There's benefit too to having a full group on a range day, because certain people may not know, like, oh man, that drill is really solid for working these skills. And it's like, okay, I just, like, you come in, I don't, let's pretend like we never shoot. You run this drill and I'm like, oh, it looks like a fun drill. And you go and do it and you're like, man, dude, that pushed me in this area. I just kind of sucked in that. And it's like, now I can take that with me and go work on that individually. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot to gain by shooting even range days with the full group, if you can schedule them out. Handgun, open and concealed, obviously working on that.
Yep.
And whether that's like, hey, we got one guy that's just like super sick on a handgun, and he basically just almost goes into like instructor mode for teaching guys stuff. Mm-hmm. Sick if you have that capability. If not, then it's just going to be like kind of buddy team growing kind of type shooting, whether that's the full team or not. But I think, like I said, I think it's important to occasionally have as many of the people there as you can. Mm-hmm. For it. Dope. I kind of got into that. But you need to almost have a classroom portion on how to go about doing, well, for one, the importance of it, but for two, like, actually how to collect it. And then go out there and do it. And make sure that everyone's doing it right. Because if someone's putting in a bunch of effort in their own individual time to collect dope, and then they're not writing down a crucial portion of it, then it's just not going to work. Yeah. So,
yep.
And then range estimation.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working on range estimation, and that can be done as a group for sure, because then you can kind of test the skills and whatnot.
Yeah.
And this goes all the way back to always kind of the sizing up. Like if you go out as a group, like if I never got to watch someone else shoot, and they can sit there and tell me they're a good shooter all they want, but until we go out and shoot, then it's like, okay, there's no hiding the fact that person's a good shooter, or, well, he's not that good. He acts like he's really good, but he's got a lot of work, or whatever it may be, So,
yeah. And then there's, you're able to add in a lot more things that, that someone might not think about. You might have somebody that on paper is a good shooter, like they can go to the flat range and lean in and get really good groups. But then when you get out in a more dynamic environment and you start making them move around and quickly and rapidly engage threats while trying to be in cover and concealment, that changes everything. And that's combat marksmanship. It's not just like, hey, how do I look on this timer?
That kind of shooting would be put into this portion as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Like if you can do live shoots running through some of the stuff that we talked about in the infantryman skills, whether that's battle drills or whatever it may be, but you're still wanting to have effective fire shooting. Like it's not just about like looking the part. You got to actually be effective as well. So And that goes back to the shooting side of it, the marksmanship, making sure that you're having effective fire.
Yeah, I mean, finding local ranges that you can go train at. This again, a lot of this is going to go back to trying to find land. You might have to think outside the box and travel out of your local area to be able to do it. But if you're prohibited by where you can legally do this kind of stuff, then you got to find a place to go do it.
Yeah.
That's just part of the responsibility. Like, again, like we said at the beginning, your responsibility is to train. And if you make excuses for, well, we just can't find anywhere, and it's like, no, you can. You do some homework, start looking, thinking outside the box a little bit. It might just have to get in the car and drive an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But plan it in, and get training value there. Practice coordinating quickly and loading up into vehicles and effectively loading your gear, and utilize your travel time as part of your training. Use radio communication on the way there.
You're going to learn so much
time.
Yeah, you're going to learn so much in each individual step, and just going down to preparing for events like this. It's like there's stuff to be learned in just the preparation side for briefing and doing all that good stuff, because the communication, all that. So you're almost learning stuff just by simply just doing it, like just not even getting to the actual process, like actually just going through the steps of getting ready. Like, you learn stuff.
Yeah.
So medical, work in medical. Oh, and before I move on to medical, shooting, go take classes too. Like, that's another thing. Like, I know that's an individual thing, but like that can benefit your team as well. Like, if you're someone who's got a little bit more financial freedom to go take classes, you can go take classes and bring that information back of things that you learned. So how cool. And if you can send multiple people, then cool, send multiple people. But because you'll still get some more chemistry built even in a classroom setting where you don't really have control, but you're still both there,
Right.
Or multiple people are there. But all right, now I can get into medical. Medical is kind of crazy because it's pretty academic.
Yeah.
You got to be really effective in medical. You got to actually have a pretty good academic understanding of why the body's doing what the body's doing. You can learn a lot of this through the internet. You can learn a lot of this through books.
And you're going to have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if you got someone who's super squared away, like let's say they're a paramedic or whatever, they do it for a living and they're willing to teach and they're a good teacher, then have them teach you.
Yeah.
But you're also going to have to get that physical element as well with it. Yeah. Whether that's, making fake blood and spraying it all over a guy acting like he's down, and you got to go in and actually work on him.
Yeah.
And you take turns running through different drills, and you got a guy that's kind of being a proctor that's like kind of, and he can swap out too. You just switch proctors, but you have guys dealing with the issue or whatever. So have an understanding of trauma medical, first aid, know how to do CPR, all that good stuff. Take classes if you need to. Like, if you don't have anyone, go take a class. So that way you can bring that back to the team.
Yep.
I think it's super important, well worth the money for the shooting and the medical side, and a few of these others to go take classes. I think you can learn it all by yourself, but it's going to give you a leap, a head start. And a lot of this is a lot of work. So if you can get a head start in one area, take advantage of it and do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I lost my. Oh, I was going to say, taking classes, like you were saying, is going to be something that, because first aid, like getting into first aid and stuff like that, which I would start there. I would start basic CPR, first aid, AD, that kind of stuff. I think it's a really good foundation. I've talked about this before, but those classes can be really boring and very just dry. Try to do your homework. Find somebody that's going to put on a good class. Might cost you a little bit more money, but it's going to be way more beneficial to go to somebody that's going to be that's going to be willing to put in a lot more like hands-on and stuff. And you can tell, like, just call some local companies around, but then go try to schedule a date and do it with your guys. Like, go with everybody, because it's way more fun to go to a class in general, not just medical, but a class in general with like guys that you enjoyed doing stuff with. And again, it adds to this overall level of chemistry and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like with medical stuff, yeah, it's more academic and it's very time consuming. And it's also something that there's not a lot of room for error either. You know, there's very much right ways to do things when it comes to medical. I mean, there is with a lot of this stuff, but medical is pretty unforgiving. Like, it's one of those things where if you do something a little bit off, you can straight up accidentally kill somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you have to be very dialed in on what's going on. Thankfully, the type of person that's in EMS, kind of like what you're talking about, melds well with this whole idea. There's someone that, you know, they're usually very responsible. They're, you know, have a service mindset because of the job they choose to do.
Yep.
So for those guys out there that are EMS, you know, it's going to make you better. Like, train your guys, maybe even if you're not even a very good teacher per se, really try to break down those skills, and it's going to make you being able to articulate it to other people and work other people through those skills is going to make you better at that skill.
Yeah. You're
going to understand it at a whole other level, just by teaching it to other people. But not everybody's a teacher, so I'm not saying, you know, force it, but I think people can become good teachers though, for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, medical is absolutely something that you should be working on.
Understand your environment, whether you're in a colder environment or hotter environment, dealing with hot injuries, cold injuries.
Yeah.
And then going back to the search and rescue stuff, what a great way to implement that and implement your skills in kind of in a real life scenario.
Yeah. So, for sure.
Actually going out there, and you put a lot of the stuff to the test.
Pretty much everything we've talked about so far are skills that could be implemented in real world search and rescue.
And skills we'll talk about here coming up, because you will use a lot of the stuff. Getting into radio. Radio's another one that's pretty academic.
Yep.
You gotta get same thing. You gotta put in the hours of understanding it and then teaching it. So, and a lot of it's going to be trial and error. There's information out there, and we've given out a little bit from some of our older podcasts older episodes talking about radio and stuff like that. YouTube and things like that. But actually just going out there and working on the pieces of equipment that you're actually currently running is super important as well, though. So understanding, talking, listening, programming your radio.
Yep.
Programming probably first, because you're not going to be...
You want to be able to use it.
You're not going to be able to talk and listen if you haven't programmed it properly. You can track using radio. You can construct antennas, doing like directional antennas, things like that. Go out there and actually see if they work. Like, you can sit there and read it in a book, like, this is how you do this, until you physically go out there and be like, okay, I constructed this directional antenna using speaker wire and whatever. Ideally it should work if that person was actually, the person that you're getting that information from is actually right. But until you go out there and actually test it, then it's like, okay, yeah, it actually works.
Yeah.
So, so that's radio. There's not much to that. It's a lot of academic stuff, honestly. Yeah. Like understanding
and trial and error, going out and just, even if you're just driving around in the car, testing it out, seeing what, you know, that's just stuff you're just going to have to do some research and spend a lot of time. It's important to understand. So.
And this one ties into it a little bit too, is land navigation. So, because you can terrain mask through land navigation, with your radio, you can hide your signature a little better based off of what you're seeing on a map. It's like, okay, there's a mountain right here. Signal's not going to push through as far. So understanding land navigation. this is going to be pretty academic, but it's also going to be very physical, that you have to get out there and do it. So understand how to read a map, understand your terrain features, understand azimuths, all this stuff, understand all the things that you need, how to plot points, understand terrains that you don't want to have to go through, like draws and things like that. It's like, it's going to slow down a movement quite a bit. If you have to do it, you have to do it. There's plenty of times that I chose to go through a draw instead of going around just because, I got wet, but you know what? It saved me a ton of time, and I was in the weather that I was in. It didn't end up hindering me. You know, if it's freezing cold, you're not going to want to get wet. So,
identifying terrain features and matching it to your map. That's a skill that's very underrated. Like physically going out, looking at your topographic map and being like, all right, it says there's a valley here. Where is it?
Yeah.
And actually, okay. And then you can see, all right, so that's a pretty big valley. Well, now I understand why these topography, lines are the way they are on my map.
Yeah.
And then, that's a very gradual valley. It's like, well, that makes sense here on my map, Yeah,
it's like when all the lines become one, you're like, what's up with that? And then you're like, oh, that's a cliff.
Yeah. Just have this crazy thick line out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But
so understanding that, but getting out there, setting up land nav courses. This is going to take land, unfortunately, and quite a bit of land in order to like really practice your skills. But this is something that as the guy, if you're the person that's kind of taking on this, you're the chosen one to take on this task. There's going to be a lot of behind the scene work in order for you to do this, because you're going to have to go out, get the points, get them figured out where they're at, plot them, like figure out. It's going to be a lot of work, but you're going to basically, I don't know, do we want to get into that really quick? Because just talking about like what it would take to even pull that off.
I mean, you could do it on a pretty small area of land, but to really go the full distance, you're going to need an area, a big plot of land that you can get accurate maps for. That's step one, because that's tough. It's harder than you think. mytopo.com will make pretty good, pretty accurate topographic maps of any custom area. You can give them like an area and say, this is the area I want you to do it. And they'll be like, okay, like you can actually set up an appointment with them and talk to somebody and sit there and pick areas.
Yeah.
So that's step one. You got to have a map of the area. You got to have all the tools, like your compass and, all that different stuff.
Tractors.
All the things that you're going to need, which will, if you're listening and you're like, please go into detail on that. Well, you got some homework to do, because it's a lot of stuff. You got Linsatic compasses, you've got map reading compasses, there's a lot to know. Honestly, a podcast on just land navigation would probably be something we should do at some point. But just specifically, like talking about the logistics, you're going to make sure everybody's got all the tools they need. This is definitely one of those things that you're going to have multi phases of training. So or multiple phases of training, where it's like the academic side, on paper, here's how you do it. Okay, in theory, here's how you do it. All right, here's some imagery on how it can be done. All right, let's all go out and work on like getting our step count. Let's work on how do you shoot an azimuth? Like how do I use my Linsatic compass and line it up with a terrain feature and all the things you got to do. And then you got to go do it.
Magnetic north.
Yeah, know your delineation. There's a lot that goes into land nav. And leave your phones in the car and don't cheat and go out there and do it the old-fashioned way. It's such an important skill to have.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It can literally save you.
But it's such an important skill for going back to the infantryman skills. Technically, this would be an infantryman skill.
Yeah,
but it's such a big topic that I wanted to keep it separate. But you're not going to be very effective as an infantryman if you get lost.
Yeah.
So being able to plot points and figure out what the heck you're doing using a map, I think, is crucial.
Yeah. So as far as setting that up, you could do it you could start small and kind of go about it that way, but you're going to have to find a pretty big chunk of land. And I would literally have a couple guys proctor the event and go out and set up waypoints, set up places that are like a physical thing that you have to go find. So the way the Army did it is they had it could be on a tree, it could be wherever, but it was basically like a triangular billboard, like not like a huge billboard, but like a small sign, more like a sign that had like a number on it.
Ours were like reminded me of a birdhouse on like a T-post, basically.
Oh, okay.
And then you could like open it up and get inside of it.
So ours were like it was a post, and it had a little triangular sign on the top of it.
I think we had some of those
that was
too.
Like red or blue or something. It was like a color, and then it would
say like 4 Bravo or something like that.
Yeah, but then what they would do is they'd hang a punch from the bottom of it, and then you had a little land nav card, and you had to punch it with whatever punch was there.
Yeah, so that way you can't just hand off points like, oh yeah, you get the same as me.
Yep.
Here's 4 Bravo is 4 Bravo.
Yep.
You can write it down.
So you had to go there and physically get that little,
there's classes on this too, by the way. So
yeah.
If you're like, man, I don't even know where to start, if you can go take a class,
yeah,
sweet.
But yeah, so you don't have to do all that either. It's not like you gotta. Hopefully, you hopefully don't have to test the honesty of your guys by having like a little hole punch thing. But yeah, something like that. It can literally just be like a piece of laminated paper that just says, like Point Alpha or whatever, and then you can have a Bravo, Charlie, whatever. So it doesn't have to be crazy, but something that you physically have to go to and find and then prove that you've been there, whether that's like writing down the number. And you could even have like a funny phrase on each one. That would be a simple way to do it, like each waypoint has a different thing, and then split up your team into little like smaller teams, maybe 2-man teams, little buddy teams, and then mix them up. So have them all kind of go off in different directions. And then another little added bonus logistic for setting that up is after you've ran everybody through that and everybody sees how it works, you have your guys that set it up. Like I said, you might have like 1 or 2 guys that proctored the event. Probably just because of how things go, it's going to have to be at least 2 guys because you're going to need help setting something like that up. At the next time your team's going to work on land nav, have somebody else set it up.
Switch roles.
Just be like, hey, here's how we set it up. You guys go out, set it up, and then that way I get a chance to work on my land nav skills. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So sweet. I just thought that would be, because some people are like, man, I don't even know how to even start with that. So it's actually pretty easy once you understand how it
be creative.
How it works. Just get out there and do it. And it's the same with all this stuff. There's more ways to work on all these individual skills than even what we're talking about. So if you can get creative, then get creative and do the thing. Sustainment. So some of this stuff will have like an academic side, but most of it's just going to be like physically going out there and doing it. So hunting, fishing, trapping, there's some academic stuff there, but really it's going to be mostly just going out and doing the thing.
Yeah.
The academic side would be more like, this is how much fish you can catch in one day. And, these are the species of fish that
yep.
Here's
how you set up your rig.
Same with hunting. It's like, you're allowed to kill a bull and it's going to have this many inches.
3 brow tines.
Yeah. So it's going to be different on the area. So just understand your area, where the areas you're allowed to hunt, where the areas you're allowed to fish, where the areas you're allowed to trap, all that good stuff. Knowing how to trap for survival situations as well is super important, like snaring and things like that. So understanding how to like find a rabbit trail and, okay, I'm going to set a snare here.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is way important and I think gets overlooked. Foraging. So understand what's edible and what's poisonous in your area.
Yeah.
That can be pretty academic, but also fun to go out and actually physically do.
Yeah.
For one, you get to fill up your pantries and stuff like that. And 2, it's good building of skills, like just going out there, because some guys are going to know more than others.
Yeah.
Planting and growing. We've gotten into this a lot. I think it's super important. There's academic side of it, but ultimately I think you're going to learn the best by just going out and doing it. So having a good understanding of where to start, I think, is important. So if someone doesn't know where to start, maybe have like a class on like, hey, this is how you compost.
Yeah.
This is what grows really well in our area. This is what doesn't grow very well. This is what you can do to grow those things that don't grow very well.
Dude, go down to the farmer's market.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a farmer's market somewhere nearby. Go down to it and just ask those people. They're going to be stoked.
Yep.
Some random dude coming up like, hey, I really want to start growing my own food just because I've seen how like stuff's just not in the stores anymore, and I want like good healthy stuff, and I really want to get into it. They're going to be stoked. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, well, what's your situation? And before you know it, you've got all this information on how to get started.
Yeah.
So,
and then onto that, farming. So whether that's having laying chickens, meat chickens,
yeah,
pigs, cows, if you want to go that crazy, goats,
yeah,
milking, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That gets like, that's a lot to learn, but very doable. You just got to get in and do it. And it's something you can do as a group, and it's so much fun, I think. So, yeah, dude, it's a blessing.
It's incredible. I think. Yeah.
And you can just learn from each other. Like, you can literally be like, hey, I got laying birds. You want to come see what I got going on? And you literally just bring everyone over and be like, yeah, this is what I got going on. This is how I did it. This is how I built it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It's cool because, and integrate each other on that as much as you can. Like, for example, I don't have any chickens yet. I plan to get some chickens. Steven does. But I helped you build your chicken coop. Yeah. And I learned a ton about how, oh man, it would be cool to do something similar whenever I have chickens. Like, I learned so much just, again, I don't have chickens currently, but I have a good idea of how I'm going to build my coop just because I got to help you build yours. So it's like, things like that, you'll learn a lot. And what a cool way to also secure your team's well-being and your team's families is through sustainment. This is one of the best ways. Like, if you're able to have your own little economy inside of your little team, dude, that's a superpower.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And this right here is the kind of stuff that some of these shadowy powers that be are trying to tear down. They don't want communities doing this because you're not someone that can be swayed one way or the other. You're going to maintain that, and it's going to be very hard to get you to do whatever they want us to do. Yeah. If you're able to grow your own food and do that sustainably, and then do it to the point of to the level where other people are being covered by that as well, that's pretty amazing.
Yep.
But it takes a lot of effort.
And then last but not least, it's kind of what rounds all this stuff out is preserving and processing the food for the sustainment side of this.
Yeah.
So this is something that, not everyone knows how to butcher an animal. And
yeah,
that's not something you just know. Like, that's something that maybe your dad taught you if your father even did that. So it's like, yeah, maybe you learned it through that. Maybe you learned it through a buddy. Maybe you learned it through your buddy's dad. Maybe you learned it from someone. There's a lot of men that go through their entire life and they never learn how to process an animal.
Yeah.
So this is something that if you're a big time hunter and you're like, man, I don't have anything to add to this group. I know nothing about the military side of things. I know nothing about medical. I know nothing about land navigation. I don't know anything, but I can hunt. And you kind of, you have something to add to the group.
Yeah.
Teach people what you got, and then also go out and hunt with them. Fill you guys' freezers up. It's like one of the coolest trainings you can do because you gain not only the skill, but you gain like, I got meat, dude.
Yeah.
Or I got vegetables because I learned how to grow this or whatever it may be. But learning how to process the meat, learning how to learning how to just all the stuff that goes with processing and preserving that food. And then also, if you have way more than you even can have, there goes some community building by sharing what you have.
Yeah.
And giving to those that don't have it. So, super cool, super fun. And that's where I was talking about the whole warrior in the garden. Perfect thing to be like, yes, you've worked on all these skills to become a warrior. Now it's time to get in the garden and actually get food and take care of your community. The next thing that we're going to cover is fieldcraft skills.
Yep.
And this should probably be a little higher on the list, but like I said, it's not in order of priority really, but fieldcraft is super important.
Yep.
If things go super downhill, you got to be able to survive out in the woods or wherever you are. Knowing how to build fires, shelter, water procurement.
Yep.
Things that
clean
keep you
water,
alive.
stay warm, sterilize things, build impromptu structures and like hasty structures.
Yeah.
About literally, my brain almost said radagast structures, dude. Dude, it's exactly what it sounds like. But anyways, being able to do, understanding basic rope work stuff like knots, tying knots and how to, tie things off and secure things. And these are all super important. And they're things that you'll learn along the way. Like for us here, a huge thing we work on is cold weather fieldcraft and cold weather survival, because it's a massive part of what we have to worry about. It's one of the biggest threats to us here.
Yeah.
Is the austere cold. I mean, it's even historically, you look back at World War II, how the Japanese actually invaded. Well, that's kind of a strong word. They landed in Alaska, in like the Aleutian chain, islands of Vaatu, and tried to make a push. They didn't make it very far. And it wasn't really because of our defense. It was literally they were beaten by the elements. They got pushed up into the mountains by our military and stuff like that. And there's still to this day old bodies up there of Japanese people that just their bodies are still up there because it's so just cold and just the weather, the wind and stuff. It's violent up there. So. Yeah, I mean, we have to spend a lot of time we're not on the Aleutian chain, thank goodness. But even where we're at, the wintertime here is harsh. So we have to understand that. It could be a huge advantage to us.
It could be a disadvantage, though,
It can be a disadvantage as well. Yeah, it can be a massive liability if we don't understand how to maintain capabilities in that kind of environment. So yeah, we have to spend a lot of time on that.
And the same thing would go for anyone else that's in colder climates or even people that are in hotter climates, understanding that, hey, water's kind of few and far because I'm in a desert.
Yeah.
Understanding where you can get water for one.
Yeah.
Because if you can't get water to procure, then
you're not going to be capable very long.
Yeah. You're just going to die. Understand the gear that goes along with those harsher elements. Like for us, snowshoes are super important. Like you cannot do anything infantry skills without snowshoes and up here, unless you're staying like in the urban areas, which even then, depending on what's going on, things could get really deep with snow then too, and it might be tough to deal with even.
Yep.
Rain gear, obviously it rains a lot here in the summer, so trying to stay dry. Hypothermia, like you were talking about, you can get hypothermia in warm weather even, so it's like, be smart. Don't make don't work on medical skills because you were an idiot. It's like, know how to do the medical skills, but don't try to avoid having to do them to your...
For real.
Yeah.
Keep it to the scenarios and hopefully you never got to actually do it for real. But if you do, you'll be prepared. So,
yeah.
Yep.
And then some of the other skills that aren't really wrapped up in any of this stuff. It's like intelligence gathering, just going out, working on talking to people. We've talked about this in other podcasts or different episodes of this podcast, but going out, learning how to talk with people and just working on that skill, how you can better it. Talk about like, oh yeah, I tried to get this, see if I get this piece of information out of someone and I got shut down, and tell the funny story about how it just failed epically and then you ended up like, I don't know.
Yeah, and you can set that up in a variety of different ways. You can pick like a local restaurant or maybe a gas station or something, and then throughout the course of the day, like you wouldn't want to do it like one after the other, but throughout the course of the day, send guys in there and
So NPC, dude.
hello.
How's it going?
No, but try to go in there and like get friendly with the teller or the teller.
We did just turn into an NPC, dude.
Oh man. Just slowly crouch until the little thing pops up on your vision that says hidden, and then just walk behind the counter.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, you. No, I'm just kidding. For all you Skyrim fans out there. So dumb. Anyways, no, yeah, but go in there, try to get then try to get information. Try to find out as much personal information that you can about that person, in a natural way.
Yeah.
But it takes practice.
Don't be weird, but I mean,
don't be like, what is your name? How old are you? Like, that would be creepy. And they're going to remember you. And then you're going to go in there later and they're going to be like, that's that creepy guy. Try to do it in a loquacious way.
Yeah.
And,
it's just like social
compare
skills.
Notes. Yeah. And then compare
anything.
Notes afterwards and be like, dude, so I found out that, he's 27 years old and whatever it is,
Yeah.
But that's one way you can do that. And then you can get more specific and actually like plan out things too. And, there's the old tried and true, like how many license plate, or can you remember the license plate of the two cars next to where you parked, and just things like that you can train your brain to get good at.
Yeah.
Where were the exits when you walked in the
Jason
restaurant?
Bourne.
Yeah. Tell me why I know that guy's truck's the best place to look for a pistol or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, crazy.
Trash.
Physical fitness, obviously super important. If you just roll into a gym with your entire group of guys, it's going to look pretty intense. But I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. This may be a little bit more like pods within the group.
Yeah, yeah.
But keep each other accountable.
That's going to work that way for schedules anyways. Like, not everybody's probably going to be able to go to the gym at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
but accountability is key. Make sure that everyone is actively working on it and, keep people in check.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to end on is going to be super random. And people are going to be like, whoa, dude. And this isn't everything, but this is just kind of giving people a place to start. And this is a lot of information. So before you would even get through all these, you're talking about like probably a couple years of training just to get through all this.
Yeah.
Unless you're just like training every weekend of every, throughout the entire year.
Yeah. It'd just be crazy.
It'd be impressive.
It'd be cool.
Building stuff, dude. Learning how to build stuff.
So important.
It's overlooked.
I don't understand it.
It's cool. We've talked about doing a podcast on it. We probably will.
I don't know why I said what I mean by I don't understand it is I don't understand why people don't think that's important.
Dude, it's super important.
Because I understand it very well. I did it professionally, but anyways.
Yeah, and then also like going back to the whole chicken coop thing, like I did dirt work and landscape type stuff. So I know how to do that side of it pretty well. I can run equipment pretty decently.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never like built houses or anything like that for a living. So everything I know has been done from either building stuff in the shop, or a coop or whatever, little projects like that. So how cool is it just to be able to go out and do that for yourself? It makes things way more affordable. You can do it as a group. You can teach people how to do it. And then also for it being applicable for like the Minuteman, it's like you talk about natural disasters, things like that, being able to build back your community, offering your skills and actually putting it all to work. Even from like a militaristic side, where do you think our military bases came from? Like overseas, you think that they were just like randomly just like, oh yeah, they just appeared?
No.
Like Age of Empire style, like
Oh.
yeah. Well, even those were built, I guess. But
yeah.
Anyways,
dude, what a game, dude. Games aren't like that anymore.
No. But yeah, so
no, it was a bunch of disgruntled weirdos out there having to literally build stuff by hand.
Yeah. If you've ever seen the documentary Restrepo, they actually have to build a combat outpost in there. And it's actually pretty interesting.
My platoon sergeant was in Restrepo.
Really?
Yep.
My sergeant major was the first sergeant in Restrepo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, first sergeant Caldwell was my sergeant major. Sergeant Major Caldwell.
Dude,
He was a good sergeant major. But yeah. Small world. Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, building stuff, dude. Knowing how to build structures that can fortify you, or just building things back for people in need. So
yeah.
I think it's
such a vital community skill to have.
Yeah.
In independence.
And there's a lot of skills like that can come back to help others. So
oh yeah, tons. But yeah, if you're someone that works in the trades and you're like, man, I just, I spend all my time doing plumbing or whatever it is, or I'm an electrician. It's like, dude, you've got some super powerful skills.
Yeah.
That's becoming more rare. Trades, like skills in the trades.
Yeah.
Dude, fewer and fewer. Those skills are amazing.
That's another thing. Like,
put them to practice, and
we live in Alaska. It's cold here. One of the guys in our group, like, will just build wood stoves for people, dude. Which is so sick,
dude. Yeah, he'll just be like, "Hey guys, I've got some materials together. I'm gonna be."
Does anyone want a wood stove?
Yeah,
will it get installed in your house? And
and other guys in the group are like, "Yeah, I would really like that." And he's like, "All right, let's get on designing it." And he'll just weld together a stove and install it in the house. And it's like, what?
And they're nice stoves. They're really nice.
It's
stoves.
sick. I would love to do it. I haven't done it yet, but I need to.
Yeah. So just
Huge,
little things that.
Here.
Yeah, it's just little things that you can benefit not only your group but your community as well. So, yeah. But yeah, that was kind of just us racing through a ton of information.
And those are not. That's not all of them, but that'll give you an idea of like where you can kind of start.
Yeah,
and I think it's a wide enough variety of things because there's so many other things in there. Like you could get into like. I guess it's not really training, but we talked about that more in the other one, but ways you can do community things together as a team.
Yeah.
Like to build that sense of community. But for training, these are all things that in one way or another, I think fit very well in that Modern Minuteman mission.
Yeah.
And it's far better than just being so tunnel visioned or hyper focused on like one or two things.
Yeah.
I think these are big picture items. Now you can hyper focus on individual skills and stuff like that. Like I said, with pockets of the team or, here and there, like what we try to do too is try to throw stuff out. Like if Steven and I are going to go to the range, it might be impromptu, but we'll throw it out there to everybody and be like, yep, hey, we're going to the range. We're going to shoot handgun.
If you want to go,
anybody want to go,
feel free to come.
Okay, cool. I'll come, or like, oh, I can't make it. I wish I could, or whatever it is. But we always try to organize and hold specific trainings that are going to work on, team disciplines or a genre that applies to kind of a wider array of things, whether that's like search and rescue or infantry skills or whatever. Like it's going to cover a lot of different things, but you're going to work on, patrolling or whatever. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the really important things understanding after now that we've gotten through the whole podcast is if you're someone kind of taking on this responsibility, understanding that each one of these things that we went over isn't going to be like, okay, I'm going to train it one time. we're going to be good.
Yeah.
We can move on to the next thing. You're talking about multiple events, whether that's classroom portions, whether that's overnight portions, scenarios, whatever. It's going to be multiple events before you're like, okay, I feel like we're good there. We're definitely going to come back on this, but, yeah. I think that's super important to understand that it's not like, okay, check it off the box or check the box and we can move on. We don't have to work on that ever again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and especially if you add people, you're definitely going to have to double back and be like, okay, let's get this dude up to speed.
Yep.
It's going to be way easier because you're going to be more focused on one, and then you're going to have multiple opinions that are like able to kind of like help guide that person in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that wraps it up pretty well. Again, not meant to be kind of an end all be all, just give people some ideas on specific training focuses you can have and how to do it. Remember, think outside the box. The way you're in your specific situation is going to vary. So
yeah,
you're going to have to work to figure out what's going to be best and what's going to actually be practical. Yeah, and again, well, obviously you need a group of guys, but if it's just one guy, like get in the habit of doing this now. And then as you add people, be like, yeah, just so you know, we try to train twice a month, or we get together and work on something once a week, but we do a big, like, hey, let's go out for a few days once every 2 months, or whatever it is. Come up with something and be consistent. Try to stick to it. That would be the other thing too. Make it a part of your, it's part of your lifestyle now.
Yeah.
It's like what I said before, kind of like what the guy in our actual group said. It's a responsibility. Treat it like it's not just like, oh, this will be fun. It's like, no, this is something we got to do, guys. Like if we're taking this serious and we're actually about that life, then let's be about that life and go out and do it.
Yep.
So yeah, I think, it's just cool to hear all the different people reaching out saying, yep, I just started a group. You know, it's me and some guys from the church or whatever. We love to hear it. So keep letting us know. Yeah.
And on that, this would help us a ton. If you haven't rated and left us a review on our podcast, we'd really appreciate it. Because it'll help push it around.
Guys, if you've enjoyed the Sean Ryan show up until this point, it's incredible. I can't believe how far we've come.
No, dude.
Let me get out these gummy bears and really talk about...
We just don't look back at all, dude.
No, I'm actually a huge fan of the Sean Ryan show recently. But, dude, when he starts going off on his... we see guys out there with your reels and your reposts. I
feel like you just killed everything I was going with, though. Like, I feel like now they're just not going to do it.
No, but seriously, it does help us to know and get that physical interaction with people too. So, yeah, if you're enjoying the show, we would appreciate a review. Review it, even if you just do the rating thing. And I don't know, it kind of works differently everywhere. But yeah, if you're getting something out of it, it helps the algorithm. However that all works, I don't know enough about it, but it makes it so it gets recommended to other people. You guys all know how this works now. It's how the world flows.
Yeah.
But we want to get it out there to other people. If it's been helpful to you, it can be helpful to other people. And that was the whole reason we started this whole thing, was like, let's just talk about stuff candidly. We're not going to make a giant deal out of it. We're going to take it seriously, but let's keep it loose and keep it truthful, honest, and fun. But like, let's get good information out there and let's develop this culture of getting back to the basics of like relying on one another and trusting one another and building bonds with people that are of like minds.
Yep.
Because we're in a culture war, and I'm not going to be a pessimist and say we're losing, but we're not winning.
Yeah.
Right now we're in a weird phase of America. I shared something to our story the other day, and it kind of in reference to 9/11. Because, a lot of us probably remember 9/11. I mean, it was a huge part of my childhood, and it was a major impact for me and my decision to join the military. And there's a lot of, emotion for people tied up in that day. But that day also represents a lot of change that we saw in this country, and not change for the better. And I shared something that said it was a kind of a very dystopian looking kind of fringe looking picture of like a girl standing in front of the Twin Towers, and it was all like pixelated and like censored and, kind of eerie looking. And it said, the world you were born in doesn't exist anymore. And if for some reason that just like hit me, and I was like, dude, that is so true. These last 5 years have been crazy, and everyone has this. I think a lot of people would agree that they have this feeling of like
almost uneasy.
Yeah, just kind of dread and like, man, we've got to do something. There's just this. I keep hearing this reoccurring. Man, we got to change something. We got to do something, and it's because we are in a culture war right now. And what better way than to get people on board with with similar ideas and personal responsibility and relying on others and bringing integrity back, honesty, loyalty, things like that. Super important. So,
yeah.
Anyways, I say all that to say that sharing the podcast around, rating it, leaving a review, interacting with our polls and with our messaging and stuff. Send us emails, hit us up on Instagram. Man, give us a call. I had some people call me this last week. Cool. Feel free. Give us a ring. You're going to have to leave me a message. I get tons and tons of calls a day. But leave me a message. I'll get back to you. I promise I'll get back to you. So, but yeah, we want to hear from you, and we want to help where we can. So all the people that have been asking questions about builds or, hey, I've got a team or this, or people that are giving us podcast ideas, dude, awesome. We're glad that's happening, and we will
continue to.
We will keep interacting, and
yeah.
So the whole reason we started this, we're going to try to always be approachable and attainable. But
promo code
Minutemen
on checkout.
Yep, use it on our website. Our website here soon. I know I feel like I've said this before, but we've added more to our website. We've got a lot of holsters and stuff on there. We've talked about it before. We've got a lot of other gear that's related to that modern Minuteman focus. And a lot of it's kind of random right now, but there's a new wave of stuff that probably this week, actually, that I'll have on there. So if you're hearing the podcast, I need to be better about linking our links and stuff to the website. I'll try to have links and stuff, but here soon, I'm going to definitely sorry. Dude. I'm holding bolt cutters right now, and Steven's thinking I'm chopping my finger off. Dude, I'm off the rails in this one, man. Sorry, I've had a long day, ladies and gentlemen, but we got to get out of here. No, but what I was trying to say is, this week I'm gonna have a new wave of products and stuff on the website, and just overall gear. Again, anything you see on the website, something that we thoroughly recommend. It's something that we put our names behind. It's something we've tested, something we trust. So, you know that if you can know that if you buy it from our website, it's something, or from us, that it's something that we vouch for. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
All right. Let's shut it down before we never do. We'll talk to you guys next time.